All right, I am going to officially call the meeting to order, the Historical Society Commission meeting of October, and I will turn it over to Joe.
Thank you, Kathy. Hello, everyone. Good evening and welcome to the, October meeting of the Historical Commission. The agenda for tonight has a few important topics to go through, so we'll jump right into it. But before we get too far into anything, we'd like to welcome a new member. We'd like to welcome Dave Verdon. Dave, could you raise your hand? Because I can't.
Welcome, Dave.
Right here.
Dave.
Actually, so I can't see you. You know.
He was supposed to bring coffee and donuts for your first meeting.
So why don't we give Dave a few minutes to introduce himself? First of all, welcome, Dave, and thank you for volunteering to be part of the Historical Commission. We're really glad to have you here. Dave and I had a chance to catch up for a little bit last week. Why don't I turn the floor over to Dave and let him introduce himself to the commission and his interest in Lower Makefield Township's history.
Yeah, hi, David Verdon, just a new minted member. I am a big fan of history. So I've started with rehabbing a couple historic homes. I live in one now. I had my first home was a 1732 house in Fort Washington. So I do that. I build reproduction furniture as a hobby, a woodworker. So, and I just like to read about history. I really fascinated by the history that's here close to the like Washington's Crossing and all the events that happened around. And so, just want to be part of this and give back. So, thanks.
Welcome.
Good reasons.
Yes.
You passed.
So, I don't know, Dave, if you had a chance to meet everyone around the table. If not, we could just go around and so David knows everybody's name, or did that already happen, Kathy?
No. We were watching the game and waiting.
Why don't we start with Tom and just go around the table and maybe just
Tom Martin joined the commission about a year and a half ago. Oh, is that right? Live in Lower Makefield.
Okay, right.
Jim Sachs joined about a year ago, I think. Lower Makefield.
Kathy, your neighbor, and joined in kind of the big gang that was me, Mitch, Jim, and I think also Jeff.
Right.
Yeah.
Dawn Bird, I joined 3 months ago, maybe. I'm just a volunteer.
A volunteer, we don't just.
He's a volunteer. We don't say just a volunteer.
Mitch Palin, I was here with these guys.
The
Helen Hines, I've been here forever. No, I didn't. I actually joined in 1986. So 2 years after we moved to Lower Makefield, but have probably the longest stay lately on the commission. And been kicked off various points, but sort of came back. This can be a contentious bunch. You just don't know. They look so calm, but you know.
This game?
They can turn on you at the drop of that. It's an interesting group, and we do have kind of a mandate from the supervisors to from the state to inform supervisors of local history and when it's impacted by developers in particular. And we have a historic district that we don't no longer manage. We set up the guidelines and they have a private HARB that runs that, but we have one historic district. We may be looking at making a second out of some early developments down by Morrisville. That's still part of an ongoing plan that Joe's working on, I'm sure. And can't think of anything else. Always open to new ideas. So we're hoping you come up with some great ideas that we can work on.
And I'm Monica. I live right near you by Silver Lake.
Okay.
Just on the other side. And I joined about a year ago. I came in like a bulldozer with Slate Cemetery. That's my thing. But I want to support everything we do here. Joe?
And I'm Joe. I'm Joe. I moved to Lower Makefield about 4 years ago. I live over in Westover, and before my boxes were unpacked, Helen sucked me into the historical. So I guess I'm the second longest standing member, Helen, you know?
Wow, Joe, you didn't think that would happen.
Really. But good. Well, again, David, thank you. Welcome, and thank you for volunteering, and we look
Thank
forward to
you.
working with you. Okay. Moving on, the next topic on our agenda is the review and approval of the September minutes. Does anyone have any comments or questions on those minutes?
No. I move to approve?
You're chair, aren't you? Oh,
No, he's chairing. I'm just,
Okay, so Kathy
computing.
can do it.
I
Okay.
second approval.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Good. So done. All right. We're going to move on to the treasurer's report, and Tom had sent me something. Let's see if I can share it. I think Tom wanted to kind of give an update, and then I'll talk a little bit about the budget. So let me figure out how to do this. So let me see, participants.video. Share screen. I think I can share this.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, can everyone see this now?
Yep, there it is.
Good. Tom, do you want to walk through this?
I'm sorry?
Do
You
wanna
walk through it. He wants you to walk through it.
Yeah. So, I'm gonna admit up front, Joe, there's still a little bit of confusion on my part as to which accounts money should be being drawn for what items and what accounts money should be deposited into. When I first spoke with Allison Stewart, who's the assistant finance person here at the township, she's told me that monies would be drawn out of the general fund first, and then once they were depleted, then it would come out of the foundation fund. And so that's what I went by when I started doing this together. Then I think you told me something different, Joe. So we can work that out later. But regardless, in the general fund, as of October 9th today, there's a balance of $20,952.71. The expenses for that were the signs that Mitch paid for. It's $186.38. And then the rest of the expenses went towards the QR code project, which included the paying Catapult for the webpage designs, and then the rest was materials for the QR codes. So the QR code project alone came out to $1,310.91, which is way under budget than we had originally anticipated for. And a big part of that was the fact that our original estimate for the webpage design was around $5,000, and we were able to get it done for $1,100. So we spent a total of $1,497.29 this last month. The foundation budget, and Allison has been depositing the monies that we've been getting from sponsors into the foundation budget. So there was a total of $840 deposited into that account, bringing the account to $16,229.30. And then Jim gave me another check today for $200 from another sponsor, so add $200 to that.
I have two more invoices coming to you available.
Okay. Any questions?
Not from my side. Anybody else have questions?
Okay,
Thanks,
that's
Tom.
the treasurer's report.
So let's move over. Let's look at the budget then, and maybe we could try to explain some of this. Okay. In general, the way that I thought about this, and this might not be the way that Allison's thinking about it, but everything that we're doing with regards to improving Slate Hill or the other work we're doing comes out of the budget, the general budget. The community budget is really, in my opinion, is funding the ghost tour, right? It funds our events and activities. Okay. Now, if Allison says we'll pay for the cost of the activities, then I'm fine with that too. That's really up to her. But let's kind of walk through the budget, and we'll see how at least I thought about it, and then we can reconcile it with her. Okay, so we listed these categories by, you're looking at my spreadsheet now, right?
Yeah,
Okay, we listed it by what our overall objective. So advocate for preservation of township historic resources. So there was the grave marker, cleaning and restoration.
Good idea.
Much better.
Yep.
Okay. So this is the Keystone Grant project. We thought we'd start that this year. We budgeted money to start it this year. We're not going to start it this year. So we haven't spent any. We're not forecasting any. But Monica was emailing with Dave Kratzer, and she asked Dave, can we do the whole project next year, or do we need to split it over 2 years? And Dave said, do it all next year. Okay, so the number that you see here, this 33,250, this is the township's match for the state grant. Okay, so the grant is the state's matching that. So I think total will have 66,500. Right, Monica?
yes,
Okay, good. So there was a wall assessment that we had done. Tom had arranged. We budgeted 1,000. We spent 500. We're going to spend 500. We're not going to do a wall assessment next year, so that number is going to be zero. There's the annual community cleanup, which we were supported from the community foundation. We actually didn't budget any money. I don't think we spent any money either, so that's all just zeros. Okay. I did have a question on the Slate Hill sign, right? Because I never heard, and I don't know, is Victor there?
no,
No,
I don't know. I had never heard whether that came out of our budget or another budget. I mean, Suzanne just said, do it, so I put that in there. I put a number in, and I'll just ask Allison if that came out of our budget or someone else's. Okay. But again, looking forward, going towards next year, we're not going to have any more signs. So that's it. Okay. The second one was around curating resources on township history. And there's two types of resources. There's the digital resources, and then there's the physical resources, the properties. So we had the historic resources survey. We thought that was going to start this year. It didn't start this year, right? And then, so we're budgeting that money for next year. Now, this 2,500, this is just a 10%. A 10% match that the township needs to make on the grant. The grant's $25,000. Okay, so we put that in as an administrative match for the grant. The digitizing of the township documents, because of Chris leaving the commission, this project going to start. We budgeted money. We didn't spend any. I'm going to put it in for next year. Hopefully, we'll find someone who has an interest in leading that project and can get the equipment and get started working on that. And then our last is around education on township history and the importance of preservation. So we had the project which Tom was just talking about with the QR codes. We call that the interpretation project. We budgeted it. See, Tom, we had budgeted 1,000, and that we spent 13. Right.
No, we had budgeted a lot more than 1,000.
But I mean, this is the budget that I had submitted, though. So
If it didn't get into what was submitted, then I don't know what to say.
I still don't know what the number should be for next year.
I gave you an estimate on that. I think Monica and I agreed on another 10.
yeah, it was really just the.
And so, we did 15 or 16 this time. And that came out to about $400, maybe $300 in materials.
Mhm.
So well, obviously we're gonna have to have additional web pages made.
I'm doing that now.
So Monica has taken that over now. So yeah, it's gonna be minimal. It's gonna be $300-400.
Okay. Say $500. Right. The Ghost Walk, as I said, is supported from the Community Foundation. And then we have to start looking at America 250. I have put a placeholder in there looking at doing an encampment display at Makefield. We could talk about this. I just wanted to get a number in the budget. Monica Tierney and I are going to meet week after next and kind of go through some of the ideas and start to put some dollars around that. But I just put an initial placeholder in here, okay? And then the last topic is our member education. We budgeted 3,000. We spent like 550. Maybe we'll spend 600. So I just dropped that down to 1,000 for next year because no one's, I know Kathy, you're taking a course, but we don't really seem to be spending that money, so I dropped that down.
Me
So-
and Tom,
What? And Tom, right?
me and Tom, we're in the course together.
And Tom, that number, yes, so that's both of your numbers that are in there.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
275 each.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And so it looks like going into next year, the budget should increase from 22 to 41, but mostly, like 35 of that is matching for grants. So the good news is that there's $35,000 coming to actually more than that. There's the 33 from the Keystone grant and the 25. Yeah. So,
Just, Joe, even doing a brochure for 2026 will cost at least $2,000. Just in the printing costs
A brochure for,
for America 250.
But that's for 2026. He's only talking
Yeah,
about
But we
2025.
have to start it. I mean, next year would be the
Okay.
year to start it, so you've gotta kind of put it together. I was gonna think about something like this, that that we had done before. Redoing it in kind of a new and upgraded way. Does everybody have one of these?
I think.
Yeah, I agree. That was the one thing that looked low to me as well, but
Yeah.
it sounds like you're having a conversation with Monica, so it's placeholder anyway.
But I also want to echo, I think, what Kathy said. I think most of the costs for that will be in next
Yeah.
year, right? Not in next year, in 2026's budget, right?
Mhm.
I was just putting something in that will allow us to get started next year. Most of the cost will come actually next year, so. Or actually, most of the cost will come in 2026, not 2025. So, and we'll have to budget for it next year. So I was just putting a placeholder in there.
Yeah, and for the record, the Ghost Walk isn't supported by the foundation. We pay for it ourselves and make money, so I just call that out instead. They're not giving us anything.
So
Yeah.
this is what Tom was saying earlier, right? When Tom's submitting reimbursement for these things.
But
So
we're also submitting a lot of money.
I know that, but
Yeah.
I'm saying so that it comes into the foundation,
Fundraiser.
but it comes out of the foundation too, right?
Apples and oranges, all good. I just wanted to say my piece. You're good.
You're right, Joe.
You're good. You're good.
Okay, all right. So Tom, you were saying the number here is now 16,229.30.
What is it?
You told me that, you said that, and then I'm assuming that, I looked at.
16,229.30.
30. Yeah. Mhm.
Right. And then, Tom, this is what I saw you submit to Allison for ghost tour expenses, was $371.
I got my notes to Helen here.
I have it.
Let's see.
Just Mitch's at the top, right?
So yeah, so for the ghost tour,
I got two more invoices I haven't.
the only thing I think the only thing I submitted was the $186.38 for Mitch's signs.
Yeah, and
There'll be lighting costs and
they're over the next 2 weeks.
But
we're gonna
that, I
have
mean,
more
you asked me what I
costs.
submitted. That's what I submitted. I don't know where that 371
You
comes
got
from.
another 190 coming for flyers,
Okay,
and then you got about 600 and change for the programs.
okay.
But we raised way more than that, so. Thanks to Jim.
All right, but that's what's been submitted, Joe, it's the 186.38.
So we'll have to figure out from Allison where that money is coming from.
Yeah, I'll get in touch with her. Get some clarification on that. I'll ask her about the cemetery sign also.
Like, I mean, she may say, look, we budgeted 22,000 for the historical commission. You guys have spent 1,000. So I'm just going to take it out of that 22,000, right? Which is, because I don't think they do, well, I know they don't do. They don't have line budget items for theirs. They just have a line item for historical commission, 22,450, right? So they don't really know.
There used to be a line item, Joe, for maintenance of the cemetery. And it came out of Public Works, and it was a Public Works item on our budget each year for taking care of, for mowing.
Right.
And tree cutting and all that stuff, so, and that comes out of the general fund, because that's maintenance that the township is required to do every year.
Right, yeah,
So you could think of the general fund as what is done for maintenance of the property. And then there's that property, and then there's other properties that the township owns, so are we in charge? That's the question of some of those properties. Are we in charge of the house at the golf course or not? Are we in charge of the Patterson farm? Are we in charge, where
we're not.
does
I mean,
the
none of
township
us-
manager want it to come out?
And none of us would have the time to invest to be in charge of those things.
Yeah, well, that's pushing the envelope. That's what I'm saying. That can be part of the problem, or just saying, I remember when I first joined, Mr. Dillon used to use the Historic Commission as his slush fund. So when he was short on some other fund, he would take it out of our budget and pay for, kind of move it around to cover some other expense. And we were kind of like, whoa, what happened to our budget? And, well, that went to, the pavement for the place that the storm caved it in. So there was sort of, the manager can use that kind of thing as a budgeting tool.
Right.
If he's of a mind to do that.
Yeah, and this is why I'm trying to get this to Dave. I'll send it to him tonight when we're done, because not only does it impact, I want to make sure that there's funds allocated for next year, but it lets him know that, we're not going to spend $22,000 this year. And if there's other departments which need funds, then funds are available, right? As opposed to
Right.
doing that. Okay. Okay, is everyone then comfortable with these numbers?
Yep.
Yeah, I think just the community foundation spent, if that goes to our cost, that's going to be much higher in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, I know, but I don't.
That's all.
But to me, we don't need to.
That's still nowhere near 22,000.
Yeah, we don't need to forecast that. I mean,
Okay.
if you want to give me a forecast, I'll put it in.
No, that's fine.
That's just it's like a bank account for us to draw.
Yeah.
from,
Okay, cool.
That's all recorded.
Okay. If everyone's comfortable, I would entertain a motion to approve the budget.
Treasurer seconds the motion.
I'll move,
To accept the treasurer's report,
to
budget discussion.
yeah, to accept the budget. Tom seconded, the treasurer.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, aye, aye.
Thank you. So done.
Nice job, Joe.
Thanks, Tom. Next on the agenda is let's talk about the demolition ordinance. So I sent two documents out for you to review. One of them is the ordinance itself, and then one of them are definitions.
We need to close that.
Yeah, I can't
hear him.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments on the overall ordinance itself?
So what did you say?
I distributed last week two documents.
Okay,
One is the ordinance, the demolition ordinance, and the other is definitions that are relevant to the ordinance.
So this ordinance is what our solicitor came up with as a draft. Is this the case, or?
It's correct, Kathy, yes.
Thank you.
well, that's good to know. Okay, so that's the draft.
My question is, and maybe I missed this in the email, why is that one section highlighted?
All right, hold on. Maybe what I can do, if I can figure this out, is stop sharing, share screen. Here. Okay. All right. We can see this now?
Yep.
Yes.
All right, very good. You mean, why are these lines here highlighted?
No, I was actually talking about the Word document, the Harb comments.
Yeah, the,
Oh, okay, we'll come back to the Harp comments. Let's talk about the ordinance itself. This is the ordinance. So structure is historical record. It talks about what it's impacted by demolition, removal, or relocation. It goes through the application process. I mean, we don't really have time to go through this whole thing tonight.
Mhm.
I guess my question is, did anyone have any comments or questions? Because they're waiting for feedback from us on the ordinance.
I had one question from a resident who asked me if this demolition ordinance was going to allow for if demolition was going to occur, that there would be a period of time when local residents could obtain materials from the structure that would be useful in maintenance of a different property that had the same materials. In other words, would that
right?
would that condition be allowed?
So this impacts that. The historic structure shall be dismantled and recycled to the greatest extent possible, and the applicant shall provide proof of such recycling. I don't think people are going to be running in
It's
with
just a recycled part.
and picking apart things that they want.
So the recycled part, that would fit that the section of the definition, okay.
Yeah.
I can tell them that.
Yes. I know, Kathy, you had some strong opinions around demolition by neglect, if I recall.
Mhm.
So it's contained in here. Did you have any comments, or did you have any issues with the way that they put this in?
Nothing came to my brain. Demolition by neglect, okay, yeah, I mean.
Who is our code enforcement officer?
There's two of them, they're work under Jim.
Was it their full-time jobs?
Yep. One used to be a soccer player, my husband's.
Is it, is it zoning officer and code enforcement officer?
Yeah.
And they're staff, okay.
They're paid employees.
How would that be reported? Like, could we report something directly to them if we had a concern? Could a concerned citizen report something to how does that?
We used to come in to the commission meetings and report things. I mean, people would come to us. I don't know, probably should go out in a newsletter to somebody, if you see a violation, if you have one, the method to report to. Basically, you call Majewski's office with a complaint. And when the complaint goes out, then the code officer goes out and checks. So like if you see someone doing construction and you aren't sure that they've got a proper permit, you might want to turn them in. It wouldn't be nice if you're really friendly with your neighbor, but people have done it. And then the code officer goes out and checks to make sure that they have a permit. Because there's certain things that
I just want to make sure that there's a good mechanism
Yeah.
for reporting, and then also, Joe, we didn't really get to talk about this, but there's also, and it might be beyond this meeting, but the procedural stuff is frightening.
Yeah, no, they file.
Can I finish, please?
Yeah.
Because when I tried to get the past demolition permits from the last 10 years, they can't access them.
Yeah, right.
OpenGov cannot access them, the staff.
You have to put in a FOIA request.
I had the Board of Supervisors and the township manager put in requests and they can't ask it. The answer is they cannot access them.
As in they're lost or what?
As in they can't figure out how to get to them.
Oh, well, that's a different story, yeah. Huh.
General Kathy, I agree with you. The ordinance itself doesn't.
I know, I'm going off on the.
No, but I mean, it doesn't talk in general about the procedures because, I had some questions around what's the role of the historical commission here? Like, when are we notified about a potential?
Yes, I think that needs,
Well,
I mean, I would
yeah.
love some of that to be in the ordinance
So,
because as Helen has said many times, government has changed and
Yeah.
attitudes towards us by doing. Right now, they are very supportive of us.
right.
But it can change.
It can change.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe is it worth, are we at the stage yet? Cause I agree, that's what I'm most interested in is how do we confirm the process of all this? Are we at the stage now that we can call a meeting with David, Jim, these two guys, not just Jim, I want to meet these two guys. And we figure out what is the process of all this? What's our role in it? And we don't define that, but what is it? And let's work it out together at this table. Or is that jumping the gun on this?
Well, I think, I don't know, Monica, because where is that defined? It must be defined in another part of the zoning regulations, right? That's what I need to understand. Like this is all well and good, but I still don't understand the process. And, when someone comes in and applies for a permit, a demolition permit, are we notified? And the other question is when they submit the materials, do we get to review and accept those materials? Or, I mean, suppose they send us a bunch of photographs that are, half the building's missing or something like that, right? So that's the piece. So to me, that was one of the things that I took away and said, look, I don't understand, and we have to have a discussion around it.
Well,
Yeah.
Joe, I know when a code violation is noted, they have to put the tax parcel number in and that means that somebody is looking up who owns particular property.
Right.
And that goes with the tax office. So anybody who comes in for a permit, the tax office checks to make sure that there are nothing on her side that would be flagged. We used to be notified immediately if a historic house was in discussion, even over an addition or a demolition of part of a house. The commission was always notified, but that was at the discretion of the code enforcement official.
Yeah, so that's my concern, Helen,
Exactly
is
what you're
that
saying.
Dan is saying, because I said, okay, so this means we're not gonna be notified because he's not sure. Because he's not sure that anything has happened since Joe's last report.
Right.
Because I've been trying to follow those properties. So he said, oh yeah, we'll just have to pay attention and make sure we notify you. And that to me is not satisfactory. I mean, I wanted in here that they have to notify us in 7 days, 15 days, whatever days.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Well, and I think we need to sit down with them and understand what the
Yes.
process is and help them also figure out the holes in their process and help fill it in. I'm
Agreed.
good at that. Let me do that.
The owner has been sent a violation chapter, yeah.
I mean, yeah, I think now would be a great time if we can get a meeting with Dave and Jim.
Yeah.
And I'm
Speak of the
happy-
devil.
I'm happy to do that with Monica or you
No,
or
that's
I'll be involved.
what I'm going to do.
Jim's in the room. He just walked in, just so you know.
Hello.
He heard us screaming his name.
What I'm going
Can you
to
explain
do,
it to him, Kathy?
Well, I think, go ahead, Joe. Hold on a second.
I'm going to assemble feedback on it, and I'm going to pass it around to the commission. And please look at it, add to it, part additional things, but I'm going to assemble a document to be sent back to David and just say, look, here is our feedback on this. So I have some things already. I've been talking to Megan McNish. She had some comments on it too, right? So I'll put it together, I'll forward it to the commission, and I'll ask you to please review that document and then add your own comments to it. When we have that together, I'll send that over to Dave, and then if we need to meet, we can arrange a meeting with him, okay?
Yeah,
But I
that
would
sounds good.
say, but before we get too far, I would say in general, I think this addressed all the things we asked it to address.
It's great.
Yeah, I mean, it's in I have a couple questions on things and some comments on things, but in general, it addressed what we asked them to address. So it wasn't like I was like, wow, this isn't what we were expecting at all. It's like, wow,
Right.
this is what we asked for, right? So I mean, I don't want to be negative on it because I think it's a really good first draft, and I think there's just a couple of things that I want to clarify. Okay.
Yeah, no, I don't think the feeling in here is negative at all. It's good. And that's just, we want to make sure we actually know how to utilize it.
Right, and that's part of
Yeah,
it.
and then internally, we had a couple of questions too and
Good.
comments, so, but we wanted to see what your feedback was before we delved into it. It may be some of the same things that
Yeah.
you're identifying.
So one of the topics that we need to discuss is what is a historic structure and when is that determination made? Okay, so if you look at, I'm not a big fan of this definition here, only because I think it should be more succinct. And I think there should be an overall historic structures of Lower Makefield Township that is maintained by the Historical Commission. I think that registry, if you would, let's call it a registry for lack of a better word, like that should be developed. It should be approved by the Board of Supervisors, and it should be maintained and updated on a regular basis. Okay.
No,
Helen, go ahead.
Jim and I had discussed something like this last week. And we had talked about sort of a 3-tier structure that would designate historic structures in the township to go with the identification of all the structures in the township, which we're going to be completing in any case. So we would have like a tier 1, which is fairly intact early structure from the 18th century, say, and maybe with additions, it could be added to that, or if it was just intact structure, and or and we talked about the other things that go into National Register nominations in architecture, a person of national importance who lived there, or a really unique architecture of the property itself, and a bunch of little criteria. And to be a class 1 structure, you would have to fulfill 3 of those criteria. Class 2 structure could be a state landmark, it could be a view, a person of Pennsylvania significance, a recorded representative or architect, or some event of importance that occurred at a structure, and you must meet 3 of those criteria in order to qualify under section 2. And section 3 would be something that was before a particular date. Jim and I picked 1939 as the limit of our current exploration of buildings in Lower Makefield, because 1939 is the first year that permits were issued for the building of structures in Lower Makefield. So after 1939, there is at least a record somewhere in township records of a building. So we can later add on to say 1950 or wherever we want to eventually get to 1960, so that we would complete our description of township property. But in those ways, we would be able to just say that structure would be from the 20th century, and the date would be a factor, a landmark view, a person of interest, a local architect or important person that live there, et cetera. And again, 2 of this criteria would enable it to be placed on the tier 3.
So if you had these tiers, what would you do different? Like, I mean, it's nice to have tiers, but if the ordinance doesn't call out any different handling.
Those specific things would have to fill those criteria in order to be placed in that tier. So that we would take all the buildings once the survey is complete.
Why do we need to tier the significance? Because how are you going to treat them differently? The ordinance just basically says it's significant or it's not significant. It doesn't say it's kind of significant, it's a little bit significant, it's really significant. There's no.
No, it has to meet the criteria in order to make a tier 1 or tier 2 or tier 3.
What he's saying is.
How do you fill
There's no,
criteria A?
right now, in the way it's written, there's no different way we handle a tier 1, tier 2, or 3. It's just, it's historic or it's not.
Yeah. Well, basically, and technically, anything before 1939 is going to be declared historic.
Yeah, so I have a different opinion around that. I think, and the reason I sent out those videos was I think we should look at the definition of historical significance as it's widely accepted, which is that of the National Register. And you meet any of those criteria and you are considered historically significant. So, and it gets away from the fact that just because it's old might not mean it's significant, right? You know, that's why I wanted people to look at that. And that's one of the things that I know that one of the supervisors had raised on an earlier discussion about this is it has to be more than age-based.
So Joe,
It has to be
in the video, they talk about A, B, C, and D, right? So if it's a historic event, that's one thing. If it's a historic person, that's another thing. If it's of historic architectural significance, that's criteria C, right? And D would be archaeological significance. So, but I don't see how that helps us here.
Right.
Why?
I think we got to look at what we've got, Joe, and and actually looking at the Upper Dublin list, the way they have it done is the same way, where they have 3 tiers of significance. So something, you know, you would be really upset if Prospect Farm was going to be demolished next week. Because not only about the date, but also personage of importance, the view that the public sees of that historic house has significance to our neighborhood, to our culture. And, you know, even though it probably would not qualify for the National Register, to us, that's probably the most significant building in LMT. You know, that's the problem. We some of these structures that we have are not going to qualify for National Register.
I'm not saying you need to.
I'm not saying
to qualify for the National Register. I'm saying we should use similar criteria. Helen, I haven't, when you went through the criteria, I have no problem with the criteria that you outlined. That they're absolutely fine, right? My problem is like if you tell me it's tier 1, does that mean that we should get more upset than if it's tier 2? And what does it mean to get more upset? Like, you know, because the way that the ordinance is written, they'll be handled exactly the same.
Well, it has more to do with someone purchasing a property. They would know when they purchase it that it is in that section of our list, and therefore, hopefully, has a higher value, actual physical value to the realtor, to the person purchasing it, than say a house that's borderline 1939.
Okay. So, yeah, I understand what you're saying.
So Joe, did you have kind of a suggested, I mean, I think usually the National Register criteria is a great starting place, and Tom and I just learned about it last week, although I haven't listened to the whole recording yet. you know what were you saying? Because the other piece, Helen, is we have to get the board of supervisors to vote for this.
Right.
And they're not gonna vote for, recent stuff.
Right.
Like that's,
Well,
we have to.
that's the issues, because so many of our houses in LMT have been utilized, have been adapted. That doesn't lower the fact that they are significant because they go back to 1712. You know what I mean? Somebody put an addition on that is more modern, but that doesn't negate the fact that the original building is 17.
Right, but you're talking 1712 and then you're talking 1939, and those
Yeah,
are two
yeah.
different languages.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm with you in the 1712.
Yeah.
Dave, it sounds like you've thought about this a lot.
Yeah,
What are your thoughts on how you define a historically significant structure?
I do think age has something to do with it. I don't think that's everything though, like we were talking about, like if someone of historical significance designed the house or built it.
Yeah, we have houses that were designed by George Nakashima.
Right,
So obviously that house is going to be worth what? Nothing.
That's
I mean, there's dozens of houses in the township that are 17th and 18th century,
Right,
okay? So I don't think anybody would have a problem with those.
right.
That's obvious.
But then it's the ones that are,
Right, so it's now, okay, well, what about 1900, 1910, 1920? At what point do you start to say, okay, these are no longer they may be significant, but they're no longer historically significant? And I don't know how to do that.
well, one of the outstanding ones is the 1926 house that Ruth Lynch owned, which is on the Yardley Morrisville Road. That it's white. It's on the east side of the road. It was designed for Ken Balder. It's got hand painted silk wallpaper inside the house. I mean, it's been beautifully restored to the 1920s. It's got a ballroom, sunken ballroom, and a pool outside the back and all that kinds of. So what do we do with
So
those?
what you're starting to do now is to list criteria. And then I'll ask, okay, so you have a 1920 house, one which has those kinds of things you just mentioned, and one which was next door to it, which was also built the same year.
But not by same kind of
Not by famous
architect.
architect, nobody famous
Right,
lived there. Does that get disqualified?
No, it's on
not?
it's on a different list.
No, there's one list, historically significant. Does it go on that list or not?
If it doesn't have one of those criteria of a distinct architect that we know of, and the date before a certain date, then it isn't. I guess that's the more that a house has those factors, and that some of that is going to be basically historic research. Somebody does a bit of research and finds out that Oscar Martin designed that ugly looking Tudor. Okay, that could change where it is on the list.
But you have a Butts County stone farmhouse that was built in 1910 by Farmer Joe.
Yeah,
Nobody ever important lived there. It has no historical significance whatsoever in terms of the township's history. What do you do with that building?
it's on the stage 3.
It's what?
Stage 3, tier 3.
We
One
gotta
list.
move away from these tiers,
Yeah.
okay? There's one list. It's either historically significant or it's not. Unless you can use that tiering system to decide whether it's historically
That's what I'm
significant.
trying to say we are doing. Yeah.
But according to your list, then anything later than or earlier than 1939 would be historically significant, which obviously can't be the case, right?
Well, that's what we're looking at with Jim and getting definitive evidence to make that list. Yeah, I mean, you're right. The house that's right at the end of Sandy Run Road is probably 1890. Would anybody miss it? The yellow one that's up against the railroad tracks? It's a frame house. Okay, so would anybody miss it?
I hope that's not a criteria.
Right. It sounds like a lot of people are saying the same thing as far as we find a date and I think. No, it's, yeah, it's more, yeah, we have the, and I know with the historic resource survey, one of the things we learned was not so much picking like a date, because that date will change as we go.
Right.
But saying something that's, more than 100 years old or something like that, whatever it is, so it grows with us and we don't have to change it with years or whatever. And then we have to make that a number that's gonna get passed, because if we keep working on this to save every single thing and make it perfect, nothing will ever get done and everything will get lost.
Right.
So we do have to at some point make decisions to move forward, right?
Yes, we do, but I think the development of a registry for the township, historic significant registry, could happen over a period of a year or two, right? I mean, like, we would start with the buildings from the 18th century and just write a quick narrative as to why they're significant, So I don't think that we have to have a be-all and end-all list by the time the ordinance is passed. But I think we should have because this definition here, right, basically says, well, the HARB could decide it, or there's some inventory list, or it could have been mentioned I don't like this definition because, it doesn't really say why something is an historic structure. And I think
The Pennsylvania Register doesn't exist anymore.
Exactly. So what we should come back to is to say there will be a register, and the register will be populated by the Historical Commission and approved by the Board of Supervisors, and kind of give some things for what makes it historic. And I know, you gave up a lot of good examples around famous architects. You talk about Oscar Martin and things like that, but that's just all part of criteria A from the National Register. It's a famous person, and it was related. It was either designed by, or a famous person lived there, or something like that.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. Why can't we just work with those 4 criteria? And if a structure meets one or more of them, it's considered historic.
Because there are lots of structures that don't meet any of those criteria. 17th century, 18th century structures in the township.
No, I disagree, Tom. I mean, they could be, they're early example. I would say that every structure that we have from the 17th structure is because it would meet examples of what historic farmhouses from that time that were in the period, from that period were in the township.
All right, so I'll take that back. You're right. They could meet criteria C, which would be architecturally significant.
And most of them will meet criteria C.
Yeah.
Most of these will meet criteria C. But then there is the house, like Helen just talked about, it's 1890. It's standard house. It's it's yellow. Something is that architecturally significant or not? That's a little bit of a harder case. We'll have to, and if it is, we got to justify. We got to write why we think it is.
And this is all in conjunction with our survey, right? If we complete that survey, we have a list of houses we're saving.
The problem is.
Let's not link them. And the survey is really going to just look at age, and it's going to make
The survey is only going to be as good as the people that conduct the survey. Part of the problem is many of these houses have covered up some of the original structure, so that you would not even know that it was as old as it is. And I know of one personally that you would not even guess that the house is probably 1690, and it looks like in fact, the township's records show that it's 1892 or something like that. It's not. It's considerably.
It doesn't have historic integrity, Helen, right? If you're saying it's 1690, but it's been completely redone, you can't even tell. There's no historic integrity there.
It does. That's Tristram's house.
Okay, Helen, while I'm not a big fan of the tiers, I do like the criteria that you listed. So perhaps what you could do, please, is you could say, I think these are the criteria that we should apply.
Right.
I do, I think there is this sense of, I don't want to kind of get into different tiers, but there are things I think like you talked about with prospect, like that are truly important to the township. And we probably want to note them in some way, but we could just note it in the narrative, but maybe you can just give us kind of our first list of those criteria and we can start to, work on that. And once we know we have it, then we can start talking about how to build the registry. Okay.
Well, it's adding the historic structure adds not only the original principal building, outbuildings and accessory structures are identified as well, which really makes it difficult to figure out what we're dealing with.
Right.
I mean, if someone hadn't dropped a metal screwdriver down a hole in the ground, we wouldn't have known about the vault that's 12 feet below the surface and goes 10 feet in and has the.
And we're never going to catch all that. We're never, that can't be our objective here, right? But what our objective should be, and what started this whole conversation, is that when a developer comes in and buys a farm, the first thing the developer wants to do is rip down the historic house so they can build, 3 other houses in its place. And I think that the faster we can get an ordinance in place and the faster we can get those structures on a list, the less likely that is to happen.
Joe, I'm a convert. I think what you started out saying is reasonable, and I think it's a good place for us to start. If a structure meets A, B, C, or D, then I think that's where we ought to begin and see where that brings us. If that looks like it's taking us down the right path, then fine. And we can, as you said, we can always amend it later.
Yeah, we can always amend it, right? That's why I need to talk to Dave. Like, we should talk about the fact that there is a registry and that the historic properties are on the registry, but I don't know whether we need to put the definition of historic significance in the ordinance, because that'll make it so much harder for us to deal with, right?
So you're basically saying, sort of like the founding fathers, if we take it out and just imply that there's some structure there, it might actually be better to our betterment to have nothing than to have it be too specific.
What I would like to do specifically on historic structure is just leave it as B, a township historic building inventory, right? That there is a township historic building inventory and anything that's on that is considered to be a historic structure. That's it.
Good, that's good for me.
Now, again, we need to talk about how that's built, how that's maintained, who approves that, right? But I don't think that needs to be here, but I don't know. I can't swear 100%. That's why I need to meet with Dave and say, where does that go? Does that need to be in an ordinance, or could that be done somewhere else? And again, what's the process for a building to be put onto there is going to be really important too.
Which is your criteria.
Okay, I don't know how to write
Not
this
just the
up.
criteria, what's the process? Like if I decide, let's just say there's a couple of buildings in Westover, right, that are built in the 1920s, right? And we say, or somehow Harb says, yeah, they're historically, significant for this reason. Okay, we put them on.
Like 1939?
I think your point about 1939 is fine, right?
Yeah.
I agree with what Tom said. Not everything before 1939 is going to be historically significant.
And then we can cherry pick if we find an Nakashima. We can cherry pick that and add it to the list.
Yeah, I think that's what he's saying. Yeah.
Well, it seems to me that if we're gonna be, if this goes through and Dave's okay with it, if we're gonna create this historic building inventory, then I think we develop the criteria, maybe flesh out what Helen said, and then we do an initial list and it goes through us and there's a public meeting and people can, say something.
And we say, okay, fine.
Do whatever and then just get the list, the list going.
Yeah.
I mean, start with those, some of the ones that you've identified as far as the 1800s.
There's I think 94 houses before 1900, right? Yes, Kathy,
Something like that. So
start with those. I agree.
Okay.
And
see-
then, you know, we put it on our agenda, we have a public meeting and we approve it, and then we, you know, I don't know if they want
So
to do
what's
the
the
board of
next-
supervisors first or whatever, you know.
What do you think the next step is?
I think the next step is probably Joe talking to Dave and seeing if he's okay with us having that in the ordinance like that. Or he needs or wants something more specific. And then we just start creating a list, or we set up a committee to start creating a list.
So I think one next step is Joe is going to provide to the commission feedback on the ordinance and the definition for your
Okay.
review. Okay. Comment on it, give it, once everyone is fine with it, then I will send it back to Dave and Jim and say, here's our feedback. That's one thing. The second thing is, I think, Helen, since you have thought a lot about this, I would ask you to take those criteria and just put them down into a document, because some of them we might just flat out say, yes, that's part of it. And others we might say, but then we can at least begin to have a discussion around refining the definition of historic significance for Lower Makefield. Okay. Do they sound like doable next steps? Good next steps for us?
Yeah.
Okay, so feedback and documents.
Right. Now, I did have one more issue on this. And if you remember, let me see, I sent you something from the Harb. Okay. And this is an important piece. Sorry, let me just, of course, I got to figure out how to share this with you. So what I asked Harb to do is to tell us what is required from a documentation perspective. They actually went above and beyond. They did more than that, which is okay. We can go through it. But I did want to get your feedback to this. Okay, so what the Harb did, not that I asked them to do this, but what they did anyway, is they basically said these first 2 points are exactly what we just discussed. They basically said the historical commission shall determine a list of properties that are historically significant. Well, it should be a historical narrative as to why. I am understanding historical narrative to be a paragraph. Okay.
Yeah.
No more than a paragraph, right? Because, none of us have time to be writing, historic structural reports. So, and then they go through about, if the application, so they're talking a little bit about process here, right? If the application for demolition is submitted and the property is on the list, then it gets flagged by the zoning department and, this whole process, the ordinance kicks in. What they did, and what I highlighted here, is they basically said, if at the end of the day, demolition is the only course of action, right? These are the documents that are required to be provided by the homeowner, the property owner. Okay. And I just wanted you to look at that, and I wanted to see, does anybody have any comments or feedback to that?
I think it's good. I think it's very extensive, whether the board will go for it, I don't know, but I say, we ask for what we want.
Well, there's one more thing we could add to it, Joe, and that's what they call a recording of the demolition. Because what's important is how the building was put together. So the only way you can get that is when it's being demolished. You don't just hit it with the bulldozer, you're actually taking it apart, which means it's gonna cost a little more money, but that would document how it was originally created.
Yeah, I like that.
That's really cool.
Jeff Marshall used to use that technique often. He would say, well, we need to do a recorded demolition if you're going to demolish this building. Then the owner would go, oh.
I would use dismantle rather than demolish.
Yeah.
Helen captures the building construction or how it was put together, right?
Yeah.
Captures the method of construction.
The construction methods.
Yeah.
All right, good. All right, I added that. Thank you. Kathy, what do you think we're gonna get pushback on from the board?
I mean, the only concern I would have, that I think. I mean, and maybe I'm reading into it, is just that, some of this would be costly for the homeowner, and I know they worry about the homeowner costs too. It's not a concern of mine, but.
Well, no, that's, the only.
I mean, because didn't they give you an estimate of what was was it 2 to 5 or?
Yeah,
I know somewhere along the way you sent a money thing attached to that.
Well, there was also the condition that it be recycled. You had that earlier. I would put that someplace in that photographs of the building and attempt at recycling those historic features.
That's in the ordinance. This is just
These are their notes.
this is just the documentation is separate. The
This is gonna
salvage
need to go.
recycling thing is in the ordinance.
This is gonna need to go into the ordinance, Kathy. That's why
Yeah.
I don't, the ordinance is very, very high level, right? Like it says you can have photographs, right? But does that mean I can walk around with my iPhone and take a few snapshots and that's good, right? So, and what Harb did for us here was put a better definition in place, which I appreciate. I would like to be able to get, I think Kathy's right. I think one of the things that they're going to ask is, how much is it going to cost the property owner to do this? And I think we need to have an answer to that question. So who do we contact? Who can give us an answer to say, look, if we had a building that was being torn down, we wanted to have this done. Is it $5,000? Is it $10,000? I mean,
Good question.
I'll do it for 10.
Yeah, I would think that probably as much as a wedding recording.
I mean, are these services? Are there?
Yeah, there are people that do this. Jeff Marshall hired somebody.
Okay, so we just
Right.
call and quote it out.
all right, Monica, you're right.
Right.
I'm going to
Yeah, talk to
Jeff.
Marshall.
I'm going to talk to Marshall and ask him, right? Because I mean, that's what I want. I want to be able to say, we spoke to this person who's an expert in this field.
Actually, the Thackeray House in Lower Makefield, he had Duckworth from DeLuca had to have it movie shot to dismantle. I don't know what happened to it. I think Jeff probably still has it.
But there's a lot more than just the filming.
That's a good place to start. See what they.
Well, that's okay. Good. So I will follow up with Jeff and I'll send that over to him and I will get an estimate from him so we're prepared to answer that question. Okay. That's all I had on demolition ordinance.
That's it.
The next topic on the agenda is the ghost tour.
All right, Slate Hill, we've got a couple things before ghost tour. Tom, you want to fill us in on the QR codes?
The QR codes are active. They've been deployed to the cemetery and the websites are up and running. So we can go ahead and I brought an example of one. These cost about $7 or $8 each. The code is laser etched into aluminum. The aluminum is then riveted and glued to a PVC block, which is then attached to a aircraft grade aluminum stake, only because it's a lot stronger and corrosion resistant than the stuff you get at Home Depot, and it was pennies more for this stuff. So yeah, they turn out quite well and they should be indestructible. We placed them as close to the headstones as possible to minimize the possibility of getting run over by lawnmower or weed whackers or stuff like that. So I want to pass it around and take a look at it.
It's stainless steel.
It's aluminum. The screws are stainless.
Okay.
Will this be put out just from time to time or permanently?
They're permanently
They're permanent.
positioned right now.
What's the life of the bathroom say?
Oh, forever.
And so these direct you to our new site, which check it out. This is the LMT main page. And we're on the front. till they tell us not to be, but I took it over and just did it.
Can we keep you in that bottom corner circle there as part of it permanently?
Look at that, yes, that is part of it. Is
I
that
think
weird?
that's a nice addition.
So here's the site. And so when you use the QR codes, it takes you straight to the detail, whichever. And now I've been trained on how to make more of these. So as we research people and get their information, we can be adding them, and then whenever we want to do QR codes for additional folks. So
the idea behind putting QR codes in the cemetery was to encourage people to come to the cemetery. Because I think once they get there and they see what's been done and what its firsthand, what its historical significance is, then they have a better appreciation for where some of their tax dollars are going. But for people who cannot physically get to the cemetery, they can access all of that information from their living room. So,
and we did same day see people using them that don't know us, and we're really excited about it. And we saw a woman
actually in there scanning.
Yeah, we saw a woman. I saw a woman reading it out loud and hitting her husband. Listen to this. Like, she was so excited.
Hiding in the cemetery?
No, I did point it out to them as they were. I tried to talk to them. They weren't interested. They came through again, and they couldn't avoid me. And I was like, "Hey, come to the ghost tour. Also, there's QR codes." They were like, "Okay, thanks." And then later, I saw her like, "Oh my God, listen to this!" Like, and then they went to the next one. They were totally into it. So,
Should there be any signage about QR codes and the cemetery you enter?
oh,
Yeah.
so that's something I didn't mention. I had 2 more of these made, which are on larger blocks, which I'm going to attach to a stake that's going to go into the ground at the entrance, and it will bring you to that page.
Okay, and I understand that, but should we be saying to people, scan QR codes and learn the history of Slate Hill Cemetery? You have to tell people.
I think we might want to add that at some point, but we haven't
what
yet.
this is all about, what you should be doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's a challenge balancing keeping the integrity of the cemetery and not turning it into an amusement park.
Yeah, but it's an educational destination.
Yes, it is, but
People see QR codes, they know what to do.
They see that.
I mean, honestly, not explaining it, they'll be like, what is it? Is this a thing?
I think having, one of these.
Plus, that's why we have the social media.
Yeah.
On a post prominently positioned.
Yeah.
At the entrance, at both
Yeah.
entrances, I think,
Okay.
we'll see how that works.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's
Okay.
the
You always
initial
put a
plan.
sticker on the bottom.
Out of curiosity, at least.
Scam me or whatever, really not getting enough.
And Monica will continue to stalk people.
Oh yeah,
as they
I
walk
go
around.
every day and tell people. So, okay, so that's, I know we're running out of time, so I will try and go quick. Ghost tour, starting with Jim, do you want to update us on your
Yeah,
success?
we
and-
pretty much have everybody who we're going to have for sponsors. I can probably say that this year is better than last year because we got more full page
Good.
and tombstones. And the tombstone thing, which was Jeff's idea, actually did help sell. I mean, I actually had a pitch this time.
Cool.
What people didn't do, and I think Mitch brought it up, is they didn't take advantage of the fact that they could possibly run a promotion.
Mhm.
So they didn't do much of that.
They could have ran it.
Didn't do any of that at all.
Here's a copy of the program. This is not the final paper,
Mhm.
but if anybody wants to take a look at it, you can see who the vendors are and what we did Jim and I did to make it
So,
happen.
well done, guys.
And the
That's
help
awesome.
from Monica, of course. Now, we didn't have one, so I put a apparition in there.
Yeah, that's
just-
perfect.
The Kramer Bakery, in case, I know that Monica knows. Kramer's Bakery, Tommy Kramer is going to give us 300 pumpkin chocolate chip cookies to give out at the end of the tour.
That's nice. Or maybe for the people staffing the tour.
You go steal it.
Just don't want Monica's daughter be in charge of them.
Oh my God, I was just gonna say, and my daughter's in charge, so maybe we'll rethink that. That's smart. Okay, I was gonna put the basket.
I had a fight with her last year to get something. She's like, you can't have more than one.
Sorry.
It's okay. Very cute.
So while we're on that, we have sold 170 tickets so far. We brought in ticket sales alone, 1165. That includes 15 donations, a significant one from John Lewis. So if you see him, thank him. We have 50 tickets left. That is, so you know, we have 12 tours and online there's 18 tickets per tour. So we've done a pretty good job. And then assuming we've left a few openings for walk-ins. I have a few quick questions for everyone that I want to, let's see, is that gonna switch? Okay, good. So just a few things I need. Does anybody have a fire pit they could bring?
What about the one that was left there from?
I have that one already.
Okay.
First, actually, before we do that, I want to just get, I've had a few people bail on me recently, so I'm gonna get some public, notice. Joe, are you coming to the event?
I'm not gonna be back yet.
No, okay. Mitch,
Yes,
will you be there?
yes,
Starting at 3 or 4
Yes.
p.m. Okay, thank
3
you.
o'clock, I'll be there.
Josh is my husband, he has no choice. Dave, are you in for the day?
I have to check, but probably.
Okay. Jim, are you in for the day?
Absolutely.
Yes. My children are, yes. Jeff, I'm assuming, but we haven't gotten a public. Helen, are you in for the day?
I don't know.
You got another historic ghost tour to,
No, at least part of the day.
okay, for the actual event?
Yeah, was that?
5 to 9?
Where you need me, where do you need me?
Yeah, 5 to 9. So that's the next, yes. So the tour right now is pretty much a straight line through the cemetery, starting right at the entrance. The maze are right at the entrance, and Gladys, our child, is at the very end. And the child I'm really excited about the story. She's in an unmarked grave, was supposedly buried there without approval. She died of drowning. So we have a little girl that's going to be over there with another unmarked grave, because we know there's multiple out there.
Right.
And she's just going to talk a little bit about being a kid and about her family and her annoying siblings and whatever. And then the friend, because also she's there alone, none of her family's there. So this woman is going to be like, I watch over her, and then explain how she drowned at a time when drowning was a massive problem in our country. And soon after her death, the Red Cross started a whole public thing about swimming lessons, and within 10 years cut swimming or drowning deaths in half in the country. So it's really interesting, and I think it'll be just a little different. And
Who do you want to have to give out these cookies at the end?
I'll figure that out, don't worry. So that's that. So and so it's a whole line, and then they are going to, because they're ending at this end, we don't want them leaving, and also because, as we know last year, and this is one of the biggest notes, one of the hardest things about keeping the tours moving were questions and follow-ups and people that wanted to get really into it. And so halfway back, Helen is going to be in her historian space. We're going to make a really cool space for you, and docents are going to bring it to you and say, you know, this is our resident historian. Any questions, any additional information, she's your gal. And so the people that are really into it are going to stay and talk to you, and the people that have to go because their kids are hungry are going to leave.
Okay.
And I think it'll be really cool. So on that note, I'm also hoping to get a really cool big old chair for Helen. So if anyone has one, I'm gonna look at thrift stores too, but if anyone, I just came up with this today, so I'm a little behind,
What
but
kind of chair?
something that looks cool and old, but also I wanted to have a fire pit next to you, so it's gonna get smoky. So if it's upholstered and I wouldn't in your home, just throwing that out there. But does anyone have a fire pit they could use?
I have one that I'm not sure if it's rusted through, so I'll have to check
I
it.
have a little,
If there's just this much metal, we're fine.
I have a little
So
metal cigar thing.
you have something, okay, good, okay. So we got it, okay. Tiki torches, can I count on you, sir? Okay, anyone else have tiki torches?
I got a few,
Okay, cool.
I'll bring like 3 or 4.
Yeah, as many as you can. I already got a bunch. I think we're gonna fill it as much as we can with torches, and more lights. This is a question for Jeff. I'll ask him. Extra chairs. Can I get a bunch of chairs from you like last year?
The folding ones?
Yeah, just for people
I can bring
sitting and
4.
waiting. Okay, great. Okay, and I will reach out to everyone. I told all the actors, the event starts at 5. I've told all the actors 4. If a lot of this stuff is showing up day of, I think I might ask a lot of us that are able to come at 3, because that 1 hour of everyone just showing up is just madness. So just keep that a heads up, but I'll email everyone with kind of the final plan.
Are we okay with the parking lot use and everything?
Yeah, Victor's got the parking lot approved. I just saw Kalutsi tonight. He confirmed the police are gonna be handling the traffic for us. Victor has confirmed we have a porta potty
That's
already.
the VFW parking lot, or is that the Wells Fargo?
Yeah, the VFW parking lot.
American Legion.
Yeah,
American Legion.
yeah, the Legion, technically, it's actually
They're both the
the,
same people are.
it's the
members of
preschool, it's actually the preschool next to it, but, and it won't be nearly as far as the ice cream socials felt, because the entrance will be at the Pico station, so it's real close, it worked out great last year. We have a porta potty, Victor confirmed already, which we'll have over in the corner of
So
Pico,
you're
so
gonna
that'll
take
be
them
better.
out across at Nayland Drive then to go back? or-
No, we're gonna, that's the whole point of taking them
Okay.
to you, is getting them to
Getting
go
them
back
back
through
through
it,
the-
well, that's part of the point, but yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, no, we don't want anyone parking, anyone doing anything on Nayland Drive. I don't know if we need it, but could I get that Civil War coat from you from last year? Do you still have it?
Mhm.
Okay, I can pick that up from you.
Matthias can be there?
No, I don't think he's been asked, and I don't know if I could twist his arm.
Poor guy, we got him last year, no, we
Yeah,
have,
he was good.
he was great, we have a lot of like legit actors doing it this year that are excited and into it and want
Well,
to,
there's
so
a hat
that's,
too.
that's cool, seeing it.
Yeah.
There's a what? Oh, a
There's a
hat,
hat.
oh yeah, perfect.
I have a big old chair, I'll send you a picture, tell me
Okay.
if it's big and old enough for you.
Love it, thank you. And then that leads me to our big news. Dawn and Kathy, you guys wanna take it away?
Yeah, so Dawn has been helping me with doing the research for the stories. And very long story short, we now have a confirmed Revolutionary War burial in the gravesite.
Cool.
Which
That's great.
I think he should have been there before, because he was actually even on Find a Grave, so DAR has already said like, dude is here, dude is Revolutionary War. So Dawn is helping facilitate the process to take it the next, if everybody's okay with it here, if we get approval here, I don't know that it has to be whatever voted on or not, but to let DAR take the next steps to make it official, and then we can get a marker.
We can get a tombstone.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the other thing. So thing one is moving towards the marker, because we really want to have
Which
it
also
by
makes
250.
To have the paperwork to do.
Yeah, so Dawn's been facilitating it with somebody in DAR, because she's a member of DAR, so she's been doing all of that, and
Who is it?
Dawn.
Patrick Van Sant.
Oh. Peter,
Oh, Van Sant.
Peter,
I'm sorry.
Peter.
Peter Van Sant.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
do we know where he's
of course
buried?
he is.
So his wife still has a
We know
stone
he's
there.
Yes.
Yeah.
The DAR has a record of him being buried at Slate Hill.
Oh,
And his
cool.
wife.
And his wife is right there. Like his
Yeah,
wife
but
is just
that was the problem, that we didn't have any. So even if they made it up, who cares?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think
John
the
Van Sant is there as well, because John Van Sant is the Civil War.
There's several Van Zants.
Yes, so his wife is there, Dar has said he's there, they also did
I
a,
think that's his grandson.
One of them is.
I have him in the Civil War soldiers.
You know, his wife is there, so we're gonna do that, and then we were just looking into the paperwork to get him a tombstone placed there also.
Yeah.
But it's exciting, and we're gonna highlight it as part of the tour and probably get a reenactor for that one, although, you know, Monica's fluid with all the
It
reenactors and stuff.
actually goes with the Stocktons, because
Exactly.
Van Sant's married to Stockton.
Yeah.
So, but the thing is, he's also a distiller who has 2 slaves.
Oh, interesting.
I did see that.
And he lives in, he basically, Yardley Hunt, his house was in Yardley Hunt. And it was demolished in 64.
So, but the basic big news is we have a confirmed Revolutionary War guy, so if everybody's okay with it, she's gonna start taking next steps with DAR, then we're gonna wanna get a marker, we'll have to have some money in budget for that, but we don't know what that would be, and we could take that out of the Slate Hill money, so I'm not
I
thinking.
think
that's
the
gonna be big.
veterans would give it to you.
Yeah, the veterans.
Well, they'll give the stone, I don't know, they'll
No,
give
no,
us,
they do the markers too.
okay, perfect.
All
Yeah,
right, great.
I'll get Josh on it.
Okay. And our goal would be to get that as soon as possible, but certainly for America 250.
Yeah, the goal is to have it marked for America 250, yes,
Yeah,
that's.
and there's now, we can just get the verification that
Yes, that'll take a while.
Anderson's there, that would be awesome.
That's our next project.
Well, because there's Daniel Anderson, and I think he was in there also.
I'm gonna look at.
Check out Daniel.
So that's the big news. We're gonna highlight it at the ghost tour, and if everybody's okay with it, we're gonna proceed with like formalizing this in the ways that we can formalize it, right? I thought you'd be all okay with it. Yay.
Thank you.
I mean, this is huge.
Yeah.
We did have another finding with the DAR when we were talking. They indicated that they had a member transcribe all of the tombstones
yes,
in
thank you.
1958. So
Huge.
we've ordered a
That's in
transcript of
between
that.
the school.
Yeah.
Yeah. So hopefully that may identify any other Revolutionary War soldiers.
Whatever happened to the ground penetrating radar?
I
What
never
was the
did get
result
back.
of all of
They
that?
didn't-
The 2D radar scan, we have the returns from that. The 3D scan was a bust.
It was, yeah, we didn't have, we have the equipment, but we didn't get anyone that knew how to use it.
Really?
Yeah, that was
That's
the problem. So
That's-
it was a bust, but we learned a lot about what we have so much more research to do in there to keep us busy before we try anything like that again. There's a ton more that once we do have someone, because we won't get into it, but.
So you have that large section on the upper part that's.
Yeah.
Well, when they scanned that, it was return.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it was just a row of
So it's just like we
returns.
said, pit grades.
And they were all evenly spaced, so they weren't artifacts,
Pit grades.
rocks and, debris. and stuff
Very
like that.
interesting.
So the early Quakers, and that's.
Yeah, so we confirmed that the
We know
Quakers were
Hucks
there.
We know the Ortleys are there, we know the.
So
You know,
does
Johnny's-
somebody have that return map?
Yeah, I have it somewhere. I think it's on my computer.
I would think Monica would have that.
That should go on the
Yeah, that should be on the
that
QR
image
code,
should go on
yeah,
the website.
Okay, we can tell her. I think she's talking to kids and stuff, but
because that was cool.
yeah, I mean, we don't want them to come back until we're more focused and have a more, well, one, not Derek from Public Works, who is lovely, but didn't know what he was doing.
They need to be trained on it, is what the problem is.
Yeah, and we also need to focus on what they want.
Crime lab, this is Bucks County Crime Lab.
Yeah.
Well, they borrowed the equipment, so apparently
They didn't have
borrowing the equipment does not come with
instructions.
instructions as to how to use it.
Expertise.
All right. So Tom was just saying that if you have a copy of the ground penetrating radar stuff, that should go on the website.
Okay, yes, yeah.
Yeah, with a little write-up. what was
With the-
done and
yeah.
How it was.
A little quit about
How it was
how
generated.
Quakers didn't mark their graves
Mhm,
because it's a
mhm.
sign of vanity.
All right, so did you cover all yours?
I've got some flyers left over, so we have 2 weeks and I think everybody will take some. I put some in the library. I know Jim wanted to use some. The sponsors may want to keep some in their stores.
Yeah.
So we got a bunch of them in here.
This might be it. I remember being told there was support for the permission to create it. Okay.
It's about 200.
And do we give these away or sell them?
We were selling them, but now we're giving.
Well, I was thinking we could.
I said, keep watching.
Well, Jeff's selling stuff, we should sell them.
Everybody puts some in the library, another one up in ShopRite
Nice.
down here and
I'd be happy to
Victor
give
took
them.
about
I'm
200.
sure.
I don't know what he's done with them.
That'd be interesting.
All right, so is that this part of the agenda done?
Yeah, we'll take a couple.
So Joe can move us on so we can go home sometime this evening?
That's up here.
Is Jeff there?
Jeff's not here.
Monica put some already too.
Let me give a quick update then on the Historic Resource Survey. So we have the grant money, but we don't have someone to do the survey yet. Jeff put out an RFP. We got no responses to it. So we modified the RFP a little bit and he sent out, I think, 30 more requests. I also sent out a few. So at least I haven't heard that we have anybody back. So we'll just table this for tonight. We don't need to discuss it any further. But right now the project's on hold until we find someone to come in and do it for us. The other topics I just put grayed out for this evening, not that they're not important, but I knew we would go pretty long with the topics that we had. Before we close, is there any new business that anyone would like to bring up?
Any new business?
I have a question.
Yes.
You mentioned this to Monica. Who owns the intellectual property rights to the Slate Hill Cemetery?
What intellectual property are you talking about?
As an example, I was talking to, as I was going around with these sponsorships, I was talking to Glenn, who owns the Ship and Print and also owns a cellar across the street. And we had talked, and I talked to Mitch about this, about doing actually licensing, not licensing, but somehow going to a distiller and creating a special release whiskey line. Of Slate Hill, 1692 Yardley, whatever.
I like that.
And what we could do is, and the reason why I asked the question is, we could license out the Slate Hill Cemetery. And the other idea that I had is it could actually create a shop, and I don't know if it would be allowed, I don't know how you all feel about it, a shop on the site that would sell Slate Hill Cemetery product. And I've done this before for other people. As an example, mugs, pillows, that kind of thing, to raise money for the commission and awareness. And that's just my thing. So I just thought about it. I don't know how you guys feel about it.
Well, it's owned by the township.
Yeah, I can't see the township saying like, oh, we're gonna sell our cemetery for whiskey, but I don't know, maybe the budget gets tough enough.
It is actually owned, I mean, legally owned by the township.
Yes, it is
The
township
entire
property.
thing, the Quakers gave the other section to the township in 1992 as part of the tricentennial of the township.
Interesting.
So they own it free and clear. So I would guess if you could place such a display in a shop in downtown Yardley or shop in Edgewood Village, that would make sense. I think on the site, building anything would be a problem.
I would
But,
agree.
Building a shop on the site
Building a shop on the site would be a problem, yeah.
with the supervisors.
Yeah, in terms of, first of all, water, electric, how would you do it?
And also might just.
Also, I think,
No.
also, I think,
I'm talking
Tom
about
said
on the
earlier,
site, on the
Tom
township
said earlier,
site, not physically,
I mean,
Oh,
they
you
have
mean on the
a
website,
our
the
site.
website.
on
oh,
the website.
Oh, okay.
oh, I thought you meant the
No,
cemetery itself.
no,
Okay,
no,
that's
on the
what we need to go.
website.
On the site.
That would be
itself.
interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that would be
As a
interesting.
fundraiser, as
As
a
a
fundraiser.
right.
I mean, when we talked about t-shirts and stuff like that for the ghost tour, I think the thing is having to put in the initial investment, doing all of the stuff, how you're gonna get it done, like. I mean, I'm fine with the t-shirts, I don't think whiskey, you know,
You don't
I
have.
mean, I know you're excited and stuff, but I don't think the township is gonna put down.
Granddad.
You don't have to do it. If you did this on the website, there are companies that'll do one-offs.
Right.
So the people can go pick what they want and order it, and it's a
You're
one-off.
basically
Have
hiring
you
a
ordered
company.
over
No
21?
inventory.
Mhm.
No inventory.
So
That's
Can I-
amazing.
But the
I
company-
think to follow up on Jim's suggestion, I mean, let's just use the whiskey as an example, but it'd be.
Yeah, let's use that.
Suppose there was a distiller who wanted to create a blend and call it Slate Hill and offered us, I don't know, a dime or $1 for every bottle sold as a.
Percentage, right.
Yeah, I don't see a problem with that. No,
No, I don't see a problem with it either. I think what Jim's asking is, how do we secure those rights?
well, I think I mean, the only,
What would keep somebody from just going and doing it themselves, or they would say, yeah, I like that, that's a great name, and you know what, I don't know you a dime.
and I don't know, right, so I don't know if the name is protected, right? You know, yeah, right, like, why couldn't someone
So
just,
something like that, you would copyright.
That's right.
It would not be.
You could copyright it.
You copyright the
Right.
name.
The
Oh,
old Slate Hill
Trademark,
Cemetery.
yeah, right, exactly. You could do
how
that.
long would the copyright last?
I'm sorry?
How long would the copyright last? I mean, the cemetery's centuries old.
No, you copyright the name.
Yeah,
I know, but how long does that copyright last?
Oh, copyrights are
71 years.
indefinite. No, they're forever.
Oh.
it's easy to do.
No, because there's
Yeah,
buildings there's books that are now, they were copyrighted, but they're now in
Yeah,
public.
their copyrights expire after 75 years.
Music.
Yeah, so I don't think that, I mean, the cemetery is, 300 years old.
If we copyright it, we will own it,
But the
and
day
you can license it out.
And then you
the
can
clock
sue them
starts
if
the
they
day you
use it.
copyright it, not the age of what you're copywriting. Right.
It's just the name.
Just name. It's a
Is it
brand.
expensive to
If,
copyright?
No,
No,
no, it's not. It's a couple thousand.
not even that.
not even that, yeah. I have a copyright on my dissertation.
Right, yeah. I'm just thinking of ways of getting more exposure, making money for cause, and it's.
Oh, it's something that we can look at again for next year, where you just have another table set up,
Well,
and we maybe do get some inventory, buy some ghost masks or
Well, if you want,
whatever.
if you want
sell
to do
them
it
right
to Harvest
there.
Day, you would set up something like Harvest Day.
Yeah, right, you could start that and
Right.
carry it over to
Right.
the.
Actually,
I'm only thinking about how do you control. How do you
wasn't there
control
one at the Boy
the
Scouts?
you don't need to do
It has a
anything.
beard.
All you have to do is state that it's copyrighted.
name?
All you have to do is
copyright.
The
The
little
copyright
symbol.
symbol and the date, and it's copyrighted.
But
But
Right, okay,
getting it trademarked would,
That's
is more
another story.
That's
enforceable.
another story.
It's more enforceable.
that's another story,
Copyright, you just say it's copyrighted.
right, anybody can mess with that, and then you know.
But
you really know.
what I would do is get a trademark.
But trademark's better because if there's copyright, somebody could steal it from you.
Correct.
Right.
But then that's it, probably.
Interesting, just new business, interesting
And we
comment
all
by.
donate.
So what do we want to do with this? I mean, it's an interesting conversation. Is it something that we want to follow up with? I mean,
Yeah, well, just as an exercise,
Jim will.
Just as an exercise. What I would like to do is go to one of his distilleries that he buys product from. He can't do it himself, he can only dispense it. Go to the distillery and just say, hey, here's an idea for you guys, what do you think about this? You have nothing to lose.
Right.
As
and
Bob would say.
we'd be
Right.
interested, as a fundraiser, would there be a certain percentage of sales that you would
It
donate?
would be a percentage.
Yeah, right.
Be a percentage. Yep,
They come over to
So-
Makefield Highlands.
to do that.
Let's take that, Helen, as an action. Yeah. I mean,
Okay, Jim will follow up.
I think it's,
Yeah,
I think it's a good idea. I mean, yeah, I'm not so sure. I know you guys can decide whether you want to sell T-shirts or stuff at the ghost tour. I mean, but this is a different idea, right? It's a way of doing fundraising that reaches out beyond just the normal people that we have, and it might
Right,
actually
right.
bring some people.
Regular income. So
Yeah.
it's an income stream.
I have another comment.
Yes, ma'am.
New business, I got a call from a Girl Scout troop who wanted to know if there was anything that a group of girls could do, some hours of service, to the commission. I was thinking if we get our artifact, project going, that maybe they could make copies of things and then help
Or
file
digitize
that,
it.
so,
Right.
yeah, so just a thought.
We just need someone who's going to lead that project.
Yeah. So there are people that would be happy to work on it.
Mhm.
Okay,
I mean, do we have someone who's interested in leading the project?
I wasn't paying attention.
the archiving, that's
Oh, the
taking the township materials and copying them.
What happened with that grant, Joe? Is
We
that,
got it.
No.
So the money for the grant we just put into the budget. We have the money budgeted, but
Okay.
Chris was supposed to do equipment selection. I mean, he never got around to it, right? So with Chris not here, there's no one who's actually leading the project.
so is Chris gone? Is he off the?
Yeah, he's resigned.
He's retired? Okay. He resigned.
He had too much work.
Yes.
Well, we'll put that out there
Oh.
for someone to volunteer.
The other thing, Joe, the Patterson Farm data. I sent you what I thought you guys were trying to gather. And then I was waiting for your feedback on that, because I only did one person, I think. So am I on the right track? Do you want me to continue?
I've just been so slammed with other things, Tom, I haven't gotten to it.
Yeah, so let me tell you what I did. I went through the records, person by person. You gave me, I think, 4 or 5 names.
Right.
And copied down everything I could about their farming activities, the number of bushels of wheat and corn and cattle and all that stuff, acres. And then I went to the LMT Township data and then tried to present the individual data as a percentage of what the township had produced that year.
Mhm.
So is that the kind of thing that you're hoping I would pull out or not?
Right, yes, because in any year where there's a census, there's an owner. There should be an owner for Patterson Farm, and that's why the chain of title was there. And if you could say they produce this right amount, which is what you've done, the question is, and for most of it, it's already aggregated, like what was the total, what was the average? How did it compare? Was it like one of the top 5 in the township, or was it just meh, That's if it's like, hey, this was a top 5 producer of this, either this crop or something like that, then that goes into historical significance.
Well, I don't have the data to compare it with other farms, but I do have the census data from LMT, and I can say that this guy produced 7% of the total corn that was harvested that year in LMT.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Tom. I mean, that's
Okay.
If you could say something like that, right, then that speaks to the agricultural historical significance of that.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what I gave you, and if that's the kind of thing you're looking for, then I'll continue with that.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
All right.
What does taking charge of that other project entail, and what happened to that other woman that I directed to you who lived like 2 inches out of LMD? Did anything ever happen with her?
No, and there's another person that I have too, Kathy, but what we're waiting for is they're willing to work on it, but we need someone to lead it. You know what I mean? We need, like what Chris was doing, he brought us together. We went through one December, we sorted through all the old crap and got rid of duplicates, and we put these things in the cabinets, and then Chris started to create an index around like what we had. And then he was going to begin to say, okay, now that we cataloged everything, we have to start, digitizing it. But once we digitize it, what are we going to do with it? How are we going to organize it? Right. So that's the whole part. Like we could find people to come in and digitize stuff for us, but then we're going to have a lot of PDFs on there, which actually is harder to work with than the actual artifacts themselves. So what we're really looking for is someone to say, all right, I'm going to figure out how to take all of this stuff, get it online in a form that it could be searched, right? And then once you have that, then you can find people to come in and sort through or do digitization and all of that, right? But we don't have that overall leadership here on this.
Well, it feels like, it feels like somebody needs some specialized knowledge.
Well, it's about finding the topics that might be useful.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, you guys are doing historical research, right? I mean, the reason we do this is to serve people who want to do historical research, right?
Right.
So you guys have a feel for what the other systems do and how you search them. And right now, you don't have access to any of our systems sitting in a file cabinet in that room, So.
All right, well, let's keep it on and we can keep thinking about it and pick
that's
Don's brain a little bit.
Let's let it stew.
Is there any public comment? Is there any public?
There is, Dawn's our public, so
Hi,
she's our
Dawn.
public and volunteer, so.
One of the things I do want to talk just for a minute about, we talked a meeting or two ago about digitizing this to become an audio tour that we potentially can sell and make a profit on. I'm going to continue to work on that. I haven't had time because I've been working on Slate Hill, but I will go back to this. I'm not going to be at the November meeting, but I will come. I'm hoping to come with a presentation in December to show you potentially what we could do.
Okay.
And especially, I want to get this out there before America 250, if we go that direction.
I couldn't tell what you were holding, but it looks like from the shape, it's the historic.
It's the book, it's the little book
The
on
landmark.
Lower Makefield.
Yeah.
Okay. I agree that it would be nice to have that in in a form besides a printed form? I mean, because people are using stuff on their phones more and audio's great. I don't know that we need to sell it, but
We don't
but I
need to what?
sell it. I think we could just make it available for people who want to come and learn, but
It'll be hosted on a site and there will be costs associated with it.
yeah,
Well, yeah, let's see. I mean, let's see if we can get it on our site.
exactly. But I do agree that putting it into an audio form, and there's a lot of great stuff you can do with that, especially if you're using kind of a GIS tracking that knows where you are when you're close to a house. And yeah, I think that would be an excellent
Right, that's what it would be.
revamp of that information to bring it into the 21st century. Yeah. So our next meeting is on the 13th of November.
Right.
Question is do we want and need a December meeting? Because I think that would it's the second week in December. Or do we want to postpone that and start again in January?
Well, I won't be at any December meeting. I'm away most of the month. Whatever that's worth.
That's what. Wait and figure it out later.
Well, we can, but I mean, Katie's going to ask us about upcoming meeting dates. I don't know.
I say no, but push it into the new year.
All right, so the December meeting would be
The 11th.
the 11th.
I mean, can people make it?
I won't.
I mean, Mitch can't, but can other people make it? I mean, I just feel like we have a lot of projects right now, so.
We could have a Christmas party.
Cemetery
We
whiskey.
can all go Joe's.
Actually, I was thinking of hosting a party for everybody.
You think that would be awesome?
A cocktail party, having hors d'oeuvres and some dessert
That would be nice.
with spouses, of course.
Okay, but that's a party, not a meeting.
we ask
We can't have a
Anne Marie about
meeting
this?
because
I'm sorry.
Did
whatever.
we ask Anne Marie about this? How would she be okay with that?
All right, do we want to have a December meeting or not? I want to go home, I'm tired.
Yes, I would say let's have a meeting. And if the worst case, we can have just one topic, and that topic might be what's your plans for the holidays, or I mean,
I'm sure we'll have a topic.
we could just have a topic. We can make it a short meeting, unlike this one, and then move on with our plans. But I'm asking because Katie's going to ask us soon, and I just want
Yes.
to yes. Okay.
All right, we need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. And
Thanks, Joe. Have the leaves up there, Joe.
Last chance, get your flyers out, get rid of them.
Okay.